Welcome, David, to
Oh,
our Sky Kiwi studio for this interview.
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, let's get down to business. So my first question is, do you think Auckland is a safe place to stay?
Yes, I do. There are obviously crimes that happen. There are people, particularly in the international student community, who feel unsafe sometimes in central Auckland, for example. But overwhelmingly, compared to most parts of the world, you are safe in Auckland. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't take precautions. For example, you shouldn't walk around late at night by yourself in dangerous places with your phone out. It doesn't mean that we can't do better. And I want to talk about the bar owner who's been robbed so many times over 16 years and has lost confidence in the police. And also, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have 3 strikes for burglary, because we should have that policy. And I'll tell you something else, we should also be working much harder to help people in prison learn to read, because a very high proportion of the people in prison cannot read. And so long as prisoners are being released from prison without the ability to read, they will return to crime. So yes, Auckland is safe, but there are quite a number of things we should be doing to make it safer. There's different statistics. I think you can ask people anecdotally. Most people would say that they feel it's about the same. There are police reports, but you have to be very careful of police reports because sometimes more crime being reported means that people have more confidence in the police. Sometimes it means there's more crime. Less crime being reported can mean that the police are defeating crime, but it can also mean that people have become unconfident in the police and stopped reporting the crimes. If you look at the International Crime Victimisation Survey, which is an actual poll or sample of New Zealanders who are asked if they've been a victim of a crime, I think that's unfortunate that New Zealand pulled out of that survey in 2001, and the ACT Party says that we should re-enter the International Crime Victimisation Survey. It's important to have an independent international survey so that we can properly answer that question, but at the moment we really only have anecdotes and police reports. Well, first of all, most of the violent crime has actually been going down in recent times, if you take those statistics. Burglary is completely out of control, and the ACT Party says the reason burglary is out of control is, first of all, it's very hard to catch burglars. And one thing that people can do to help the police catch burglars is go to the police website and make a record of the serial numbers of your valuables, of your TV, of your laptop. Record your valuable items on the police website so that if the police ever catch a person with your valuables, they can link your robbery or your burglary back to that criminal and convict them. So that's the first thing that the community can do. But ultimately it's the government's responsibility, and the ACT Party says something very simple. If you do 3 burglaries, then you have probably committed many, many more because the police are not catching enough burglars. Sometimes only 1 in 10 burglars are actually caught. So when we do catch one, we need to make sure that we lock them up. So if you do 3 burglaries, then you should do 3 years jail. That's ACT's 3 strikes policy. But there's also another side to this, which is that burglary is sort of an entry-level crime. So if we're worried about robbery, if we're worried about violent and sexual offences, then we need to jump on burglars early. And the problem is, oftentimes burglars get maybe 6 months or 12 months, and then they get out on parole after half of that. So they get out of jail after 3 months or 6 months. And then all they've done is been to jail for a short period of time and learnt how to get away with it next time. What we should be doing is introducing a rule that you cannot be released from jail until you've learnt to read. And just last week, I went to the Remataka prison near Wellington, where I met prisoners who had been on courses run by the Howard League, where prisoners are taught how to read. Sometimes 45 years old, never knew how to read, difficult to get a job and earn money, turned to crime, went to jail, but now he can read, he probably won't be back in jail again. So there's a combination of measures. We need to be tougher on sentencing, but we need to do better at rehabilitating people once they get into prison so that they don't commit more crime and come back. Well, I think that, first of all, law and order is the first thing the government should do. You can't have commerce, you can't have education, you can't have healthcare, you can't have an economy until people are safe. So that's the number one thing that the government has to do. However, it's regrettable. I went to Parliament earlier this year. I asked Parliament to debate the 3 strikes bill for burglary, and my colleagues from the Green Party said no, and it only takes one to object. I asked my colleagues from the National Party in government to adopt 3 strikes as a government policy, and they said no as well. So unfortunately, at the present time, there is not enough will in Parliament to pass a 3 strikes burglary law. I think that's really unfortunate because burglary is a huge problem for many New Zealanders. However, my objective is to make ACT stronger. I'm asking people who are concerned about burglary, who want to see 3 burglaries equal 3 years jail, vote for ACT and give us the power to change that law. Every single vote will count. I think in part because they are envious of the success of ACT in the past. Our 3 strikes for violent and sexual offences has been a big success. People that get a first strike, after that warning, they by and large do not commit a second strike or a third strike. So that's been a big success, and they don't want to give us too much credit. The Green Party is philosophically opposed. They think that the job of the government is to look after the criminals first and then the victims, and I think that's wrong. And the National Party, I don't really understand. National and ACT worked hard and worked well together for the original 3 strikes, but they don't seem prepared to extend the policy to burglary, and that's very unfortunate. But the National Party has never been a party of reform. They've always been a party of sort of muddling along. New Zealand has a very large population of people in prison compared with other countries. And the interesting thing is that we don't send many more people to jail in the first place, but the people we do send to jail tends to come out, commit another crime, go back, come out, commit another crime, and so on. There are people who spend their whole life going in and out and in and out of jail. And we need to do better at fixing that problem. So one thing is, many people in prison do not have a driver's license. Now, if you do not have a driver's license, well, you can't drive a car legally. So that means that you're likely to get put back in jail. You cannot open a bank account because you don't have identification. You cannot, if you don't have a bank account, it's difficult to get a legal job. So if you can't drive a car legally, open a bank account or get a job, then you're not going to have many options, and you can see people turning to crime. Now, the Howard League are a fabulous charity who organise volunteers to go into prisons and help prisoners get a driver's licence. And these people are so happy the first time they've had a piece of ID. These people don't have a passport, but they get a driver's licence. That makes them very proud. It's an achievement. So we should be doing more of that. At the moment, it's become too difficult for the volunteers to get into the prisons and help. The Minister of Corrections needs to make that easier and be stronger on helping prisoners get driver's licenses, especially when people are offering to do it voluntarily. But we also need to help people learn to read. And those are two very powerful things we could do to reduce crime. Well, people like to say that. I requested the data from the Parliamentary Library. New Zealand actually has more police officers per capita of population than 10 years ago. There are a few police districts that have fewer police than 10 years ago, but in most cases they actually have more. So it's the easiest thing in the world for me as a politician to say, yes, we believe there should be more police hired. Easy to say, and lots of people will agree with you because it sounds like a good idea. But I think we've got to think about the quality that comes out. We could hire an extra 100 staff and journalists at Sky Kiwi, but that doesn't mean that Sky Kiwi would become a more effective website. So we've got to think about quality as well as quantity. And the other thing that I'd say is that there seems to be some variability. So for example, I think that the Minister of Police, Judith Collins, should go and visit Amy at her bars in Auckland and ask her why she has lost all faith in the police, because she seems to believe that in the 16 years she's been robbed 10 times and the police haven't caught one of the culprits. Well, that's what she told me on the phone this afternoon. Now, I hope that's not true. I hope that there's some misunderstanding. But if it's true that the police have failed 10 times in a row to keep her safe, no wonder she's lost faith in the police. And I think the Minister of Police, Judith Collins, should go and see her and actually understand why Amy has lost faith in the police. Well, I mean, all of my dealings with the police, I've actually found them to be highly efficient. I think there may be some variation across different districts. I'm not actually sure about the answer to that. But what I do know is that when things go seriously wrong with cases like Amy's, we need the Minister of Police to take responsibility. And so I hope that she'll do it. I hope she'll go and see Amy in her bars and ask her why she's lost confidence. And I hope that she'll fix that. But I think it's unfair on the police. I think we actually have a very good police system overall. And I think our numbers are better than people give credit if you look at the last 10 years. So I think that we should be reasonably confident in the police force that we've got. We shouldn't jump to simple solutions. We should be prepared to think constructively and creatively about how to get what we all want, which is to be safe. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. We have a pretty good police force. We need to do better in some areas, particularly some of the districts where people have lost confidence and seem to be not reporting robberies. I think we need to do better with our sentencing for burglary. 3 burglaries should mean 3 years, which is Act's policy. We need to do better with rehabilitating prisoners with education so that once they get out, they stop committing crimes and they don't go back to jail. If we did those things, maybe we'd get up to a 9 out of 10. But right now I'd give the government a 7 out of 10 on keeping people safe. I certainly think there's a problem with international students, many of whom are Chinese, in the areas, particularly around the CBD. I think that is true, and it's probably quite a small group of people who have been doing it. Chinese people are generally very friendly, trusting, and they may not be used to the environment because they've just come from overseas. And that's why it's important, if you're walking around late at night after dark, that you should be with other people, and that you should not, for instance, have an expensive cell phone out in front of you.